Chapter 1. The Law of Harmony, Final Extended Version. They called it the end of chaos. A century of wars, famine, loneliness gone. The last great invention of humankind wasn't a weapon or a machine. It was silence. The silence of perfect peace. Pause. Lumina, the city without pain. It stretched for miles, polished and white, like bone under sterile light. Every sound was engineered, every color calibrated to calm the human mind. No sados. No dica. No emotion strong enough to leave a mark. The first thing you noticed in Lumina was not what you saw, but what you didn't feel. No tension in your chest. No ache behind your eyes. Just stillness, soft, smooth, endless. Pause. Every citizen wore the same silver node at the base of their skull. Harmony, they called it, a neural implant that corrected human nature. It whispered chemicals through the bloodstream, shaping thought and mood. Sorrow became serenity. Anger became reason. Pain became nothing. To live without suffering was not a dream anymore. It was the law of harmony. Elian Mers woke at precisely 6 a.m., not because he wanted to, but because everyone did. The same signal pulsed in 1,000 minds, aligning sleep cycles across the city. He sat up in bed, his eyes adjusting to the pale golden light projected through the ceiling. It was the same sunrise every day, identical in warmth, color, and duration. Artificial perfection. He blinked once. "Good morning, Citizen Mers," said the calm synthetic voice in his head. Emotional state balanced. Cognitive coherence, 99.7%.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that. Spitting slow, spitting fast. I could roast, I could gas. Think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness. Hilarious, you think you're worth my time, you're delirious. Mysterious, because you hide behind a fake exterior. Inferior, you know I'll always be a bit superior. Get off of me, this ain't no humble brag. I want you to hear words, you can say them back. I want you to feel free from the chains at last, and to believe in what you got, it was built to last, yeah.
Now that I've been put through hell, I never got anyone's help. I had to do it all myself.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Gonna learn the consequence of being incompetent. Mental health is confidence, dreams and some honestness. I'm not here to save the day, that's for you to take away. I could play a million mind games, but instead I say something not illogical, something that is topical. Rub it on and watch it go, make yourself unstoppable. Dreams are irresponsible, but they're always possible. If you just believe, you could be so remarkable.
Thoughts in my head, a collage and they spread. I'll be great one day, going off of my meds. No, I'm not giving up, no, I'm not giving in. I will make it to the top, taking off in the wind. I gotta make it, I'm saving every day to taste it. I'm patient, but my mind, it can hardly take it. I'm chasing a dream that I've had for several ages. A vacant, modern kingdom for the taking.
Now that I've been put through hell, I never got anyone's help. I had to do it all myself.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.
The data patterns looked almost biological. Waves of emotion flattened into silence. Each human mind reduced to equilibrium. of the Old World, Volume 6. Chapter 1, Part 2, The Awakening of Doubt. Morning came. If morning still meant anything in Lumina, the same golden light slid across the same glass towers, casting perfect reflections of perfection itself. But for Elian Mers, the world felt slightly tilted. The air was too clean, the silence too heavy, and the warmth that touched his skin no longer comforted him. It reminded him of the dream, the rain, the storm, the pulse of chaos. Pause. He sat by the window, watching the citizens move below like synchronized waves. Their bodies glided with mechanical grace, each smile perfectly timed. Yet something had changed in how he saw them. They looked fragile, like glass figurines that might shatter if ever asked to feel. He whispered to himself, maybe that's what we are, beautiful fractures waiting for the first crack. The implant behind his ear pulsed gently, detecting emotional irregularity. A soft voice murmured in his mind, your balance level is below optimal. Initiate comm sequence. He hesitated. Then quietly, no. Silence. The system didn't know how to respond. He smiled faintly. For the first time, he had denied it. A small act, but it felt monumental, like a soldier raising his weapon for the first time after years of peace. At work, the corridors gleamed brighter than usual. He noticed how everything in the city was designed to remove contrast. No sharp corners, no deep shadows. As if even architecture feared extremes. People greeted him with polite nods, their voices identical in tone and rhythm. When one man laughed, a shallow rehearsed laugh, Elian felt a chill. There was something inhuman in how uniform joy could sound. He paused at a reflection panel. His own face stared back, calm, symmetrical, perfect. And yet behind the eyes, he caught something flicker. Not rebellion, not fear, just hunger. Not for food, or status, or pleasure, but for something real. At midday, he went to the rest garden. A vast glass dome filled with artificial trees that swayed to a programmed breeze. People sat quietly on benches, eyes closed, synchronizing their breathing with the sound of flowing water. Peaceful, controlled. Elian walked among them like a ghost in a museum. He touched one of the trees. Its bark was smooth plastic, its leaves emitted oxygen with mechanical precision. He imagined what real wind must have felt like. The kind that bit at your skin, the kind you couldn't predict. A memory surfaced. He was 8 years old, before the implants were mandatory. He fell from a bike, scraping his arm on stone. The pain was sharp, hot, unforgettable. He remembered his mother's face, panic, love, care. She didn't calm him with a chip. She held him. He cried and it meant something. He blinked, startled by the vividness of it. 15 years erased by one forbidden thought. The implant hummed in protest, trying to silence the recall. He whispered, don't take this one. That night, the city looked different. Not darker. Lumina never allowed darkness, but emptier. Elian walked the streets alone, while overhead the great towers glowed like hollow monuments to control. Every building bore the same inscription, harmony through balance, balance through obedience. He stopped beneath one of them and looked up. A camera eye followed him, impersonal, gentle, omnipresent. He wondered if it could read what was now burning inside him. He thought of the dream again, the thunder, the rain, the storm. Was it possible that pain wasn't humanity's disease, but its heartbeat? If pain gives life meaning, he murmured, then what are we now, immortals or corpses? The hum of drones was his only answer. At home, he turned off every system light. For the first time, he sat in true darkness. The implant flickered, searching for signal, confused by the absence of input. He felt his own heartbeat, wild, uneven. He counted each pulse like a prayer. If I can feel my own heart, he whispered, maybe there's still something left to save. Outside, the city pulsed with its endless calm. Inside, one man trembled, not from fear, but from awakening. And far above, somewhere in the silent grid of Lumina, a single red light blinked, marking the first anomaly in a world that forgot how to suffer. Without contrast, there is no meaning. Without pain, there is no strength. Primenism Principle I. Chapter 2 Part 1, The Spark. The next morning began like every other, and yet nothing felt the same. The hum of the city no longer sounded peaceful. It pulsed like a warning beneath the silence. Elian walked through the corridors of the control center, each step echoing louder than it should. He could feel something inside him. Not fear, not excitement, but a restless vibration, like static before a storm. Pause. He sat at his console, the same blue glow bathing his face. the same endless data streams. But the calm they used to bring him was gone. Now every number, every perfect line of code felt like a lie. He reached for a maintenance panel on the eastern wall. The power node flickered, showing minor fluctuation. Routine procedure. He opened it, hands steady, too steady. He'd done this thousands of times. Then a blinding flash. A crackle of electricity arced from the core straight into his hand. The shock threw him backward. The sound, raw, violent, split the sterile air. He hit the floor hard, his breath torn from his lungs. And then he felt it. Pain. It was sharp, burning, alive. It ripped through his arm, seared his nerves, and filled the hollow space where calm had always lived. He gasped. Not in fear, in awe. He pressed his hand to the wound. Blood, real blood, trickling between his fingers. He couldn't look away. It was red. Vivid. Beautiful. For the first time, the color meant something. The implant behind his ear pulsed violently, trying to correct the imbalance. The system's voice flooded his head. Warning. Elevated distress detected. Initiating emotional stabilization. A wave of numbness began to spread. But Elian resisted. He clenched his jaw and whispered, "No, don't take this from me." The system ignored him. The numbness crawled up his arm, dulling the fire. He slammed his fist against the floor, shouting, "I said no." The word echoed across the empty hall. A sound that didn't belong in Lumina. Human. Imperfect. Defiant. And then silence. The implant flickered. Its light dimmed. Then dark. He sat there, shaking, breathing hard. The numbness faded. The pain returned. And he smiled through the tears. It hurt. God, it hurt. And it was the most real thing he had ever felt. He looked up at the rows of glass pods. Dozens of workers inside, still typing, still smiling. Oblivious to his cry, unaware of the crack that had just formed in their world. He raised his burned hand and whispered, "Can you even feel this? Any of you?" No one turned. No one blinked. The city was deaf to pain. He pressed his palm to the glass nearest him. Inside, a young woman sat motionless, her face serene. Her eyes, however, flickered. Just for a moment. A spark. Like a reflection of his own awakening. He stumbled toward the exit, every nerve alive. The smell of burnt ozone still in the air. The wound throbbed with every heartbeat, each pulse reminding him that he was still human. In the corridor, a soft metallic voice followed him. Anomaly detected. User MERS, please proceed to the realignment center. He froze. Realignment. He'd seen people go there. No one ever came back the same. Some never came back at all. He turned off his communicator, pulled the chip from his wrist ID, and threw it into a drain. For the first time in his life, he was invisible. He looked at his hand again. The skin blackened where the current had entered. He flexed his fingers. It hurt. He whispered to himself, "So this is pain." And after a long pause, "It's beautiful. Pain is not the enemy. It is the teacher that reminds us we are alive." Primenism Principle 2. Chapter 2 Part 2. The Forbidden Sensation. Elian walked through the corridors of Lumina like a ghost. The city that once felt silent now screamed in its stillness. Every light, every hum of machinery, it all felt alive, as if the whole system was watching him breathe. The wound on his hand pulsed with heat. Each heartbeat echoed in it, a steady rhythm of defiance. He could almost hear the words inside that pain. "You exist. You exist. You exist." Pause. He reached the transit platform. Dozens of citizens stood there, perfectly still, eyes forward, posture identical. They waited for the gliding train in tranquil silence. Elian stood among them, a man burning in a sea of statues. He wanted to scream, to tell them what he had felt, what it meant to feel at all. But he knew what would happen. The system would detect emotional disturbance. Harmony enforcement would arrive. They'd take him to the realignment center. And all of this raw, terrifying beauty, would vanish. So he stayed quiet. The train arrived without a sound. Doors opened. They entered. He didn't. Instead, he turned and walked in the opposite direction. A simple act, but in Lumina, disobedience was a revolution. He reached the lower maintenance sectors, places where Harmony's signal grew weaker. The air was colder here, filled with the hum of old machines and dripping pipes. This was the skeleton of the perfect world. He pressed his back against a wall and finally let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. The pain was still there, sharp, honest, pure. He looked at his trembling hand under the flickering light. "You're not my enemy," he whispered to it. "You're what they stole from us." The thought frightened him. Not because it was dangerous, but because it felt right. He remembered the system's mantra. Pain is chaos. Chaos is death. But as he bled, he realized the opposite was true. Pain was movement. And movement, life. He laughed softly, the sound awkward, unfamiliar. The echo bounced down the tunnel like forbidden music. Then he heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Someone else was there. He hid behind a support beam, his heart pounding loud enough to betray him. A beam of light swept across the floor. A patrol drone, scanning for anomalies. Its voice was calm, genderless. Unauthorized emotional activity detected in Sector 9. Deploying agents. Elian pressed against the wall, watching the light crawl closer. His implant was dead, he was off the grid. But his heartbeat, his breathing, these things were still human. He clenched his fist and whispered, "If they find me, they'll take it away." He looked at his hand again, burned and trembling. "But they'll never understand why I'd rather feel pain than nothing at all." The drone passed by. He waited until the sound faded. Then he stepped into the open corridor again. Alone but free, he wandered deeper underground until he reached an unused chamber. Old posters hung on the wall, relics from before Harmony, faces of people crying, laughing, shouting. Raw emotion, unfiltered life. He touched one of the posters. A man with tear-streaked cheeks, eyes wide with passion. The paper crumbled under his fingers, but something in that image ignited him. "They erased this," he whispered. Not because it was wrong, but because it was strong. His body shook with adrenaline. He didn't know if it was fear or awakening, maybe both. He welcomed it. As he sank to the floor, the city's distant hum vibrated through the walls. He closed his eyes. Every nerve in his body was alive. He could feel the burn in his arm, the pulse in his veins, the heat of the metal beneath his palms. It was agony. It was magnificent. And somewhere deep in the network of Lumina, the system whispered to itself, "Anomaly spreading. Containment required." Only those who dare to feel suffering can bear the weight of truth. Primenism Principle 3. Chapter 3, Part 1, The Encounter. The tunnels of Lumina stretched for miles beneath the shining towers, a forgotten skeleton of the city above. Here the air tasted metallic, heavy with dust and memory. The light was dim, flickering from dying lamps that hummed like trapped insects. Elian had been walking for hours. His burned hand ached with every heartbeat. Yet the pain kept him grounded, a quiet reminder that he was still real. Pause. He followed the sound of water dripping through the pipes. Down here, the city's perfection ended. Cracked walls, leaking conduits, ancient symbols of the old world painted in colors long erased above ground. He stopped when he heard something. A sound that didn't belong. A voice. Soft. Human. He turned the corner slowly. A figure sat beneath a broken vent, illuminated by a single shaft of pale light. A woman. Her eyes were open but unfocused. Her face pale beneath the gray uniform. For a moment, he thought she was one of them. Another silent ghost of Harmony. But then she flinched. A sharp gasp. Her hand pressed to her temple, trembling. Elian stepped closer. "Are you hurt?" No response. He reached out, careful, his voice barely a whisper. "Can you hear me?" Her gaze snapped toward him, and for an instant he saw it. Fear. Raw and unfiltered. A mirror of his own awakening. She stumbled back against the wall. "Don't touch me. They'll detect." He lifted his burned hand, showing her the mark. They already did. Her breathing slowed. Recognition flickered in her eyes. The silence between them stretched, filled with something Lumina had not known in years. Uncertainty. Pause. He crouched beside her. Her Harmony implant blinked erratically, fighting to suppress whatever emotion was breaking through. He watched as she clenched her jaw, forcing words out. "It hurts." Her voice cracked, fragile but alive. "I forgot what that means." He smiled gently. "So did I." For a long time they just sat there, two strangers bound by the same forbidden feeling. The city's low hum vibrated through the pipes above, as if even the walls disapproved of their presence. Finally, she asked, "Who are you?" "Elian Mers. Engineer." "Then you built this place." Her tone wasn't accusation, it was sorrow. He lowered his eyes. "I helped maintain it. I thought we were saving the world." She gave a bitter laugh that turned into a cough. "And now I think we killed it." She leaned her head back against the wall, exhaling. "My name's Sora. I worked in cognitive research, Harmony feedback protocols." "You knew what it did." "Not completely. We were told it removed suffering, not humanity." Elian looked at her, really looked. She was the first person he'd seen whose expression didn't match the city's serenity. There was pain, confusion, but also light. He whispered, almost to himself, "You're awake." She met his eyes. "If this is awakening, why does it hurt so much?" "Because it's real." Somewhere above them, sirens echoed faintly. The system had noticed both anomalies now. He looked at her implant, still flickering between blue and red. "If we stay here, they'll find us." "Then where do we go?" He glanced down the dark tunnel stretching beyond sight, away from perfection. They stood together, uncertain, trembling, but alive. And as they walked into the darkness, the broken lights overhead flickered one by one, as if the city itself was waking up. When two minds awaken to truth, they become a mirror for the world to see itself. Primenism Principle 4. Chapter 3 Part 2. The Memory of Emotion. They found shelter in an old service station deep beneath the city. Rust covered the consoles, vines crept through cracks in the ceiling, and the hum of harmony above was barely audible here, a distant heartbeat of the world they'd abandoned. For the first time in their lives, there was silence that wasn't programmed, a silence that belonged to them. Pause. Elian started a small fire with discarded wires, its orange glow trembling on the steel walls. Sara sat across from him, her knees drawn close, eyes fixed on the flames. The flicker reflected in her pupils like tiny sparks of memory. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "It's dangerous," he replied. "So is everything real," she said softly. They both smiled, awkwardly unsure how. The muscles of their faces seemed unused to such freedom. Hours passed without words. Sometimes they listened to the water dripping through the pipes. Sometimes they just breathed, amazed that even breathing could feel new. Finally, Sara spoke. "Do you ever remember, before harmony?" Elian nodded slowly. "Pieces." A mother's voice. The sound of rain. Fear. Fear. Yes. But it meant I cared about something. She looked down, tracing the edge of her implant with trembling fingers. "I was 9 when they gave me this. I used to dream a lot. My father said it made me nervous. After they installed it, I stopped dreaming." He studied her face, not the symmetry or smoothness that Harmony designed, but the tiny imperfections, the faint line near her eye, the way her lip trembled when she spoke. Human details. Proof of life. "You're beautiful," he said without thinking. She blinked, startled. "No one says that anymore." "Then I'll be the first." For a heartbeat, the air between them changed. Something fragile and sacred hung there. The birth of connection. The forbidden warmth of recognition. Sara reached out, hesitated, then touched his burned hand. He winced, not from pain, but from how alive it felt. Her skin was warm, trembling. "It hurts," she whispered. "That means it's working," he said. She laughed, a real laugh, sharp and uneven, echoing through the chamber. They both froze, listening to it fade. Laughter had no place in Lumina. Yet here it was, breaking rules written in silicon and law. After a long silence, Elian said, "Maybe that's what they feared most. Not chaos, not war, but connection. Because the moment you feel something for another person, you can't be controlled." Sara nodded slowly. And if others felt it too, the whole system would fall. They stared into the fire. Its light flickered like a pulse, the pulse of something ancient returning. "What happens when they find us?" she asked. "Then we make them feel what we did." Outside, far above, the network murmured like a storm behind glass. But down here, beneath its reach, 2 human beings sat beside a fragile flame and remembered what it meant to be alive. Love is the most dangerous form of pain, for it demands you risk yourself completely. Primenism Principle V. Chapter 4, Part 1. The Garden of Control. The silence of the lower tunnels didn't last. Above, the city stirred. Harmony's sensors searching, tracing the pulse of disobedience. Somewhere in the network, Elian's name flickered in red. Anomaly class, critical. Pause. He and Sara moved through maintenance corridors like shadows. Their stolen access cards granted them short windows of invisibility. Every time a scanner swept past, they held their breath. And every time the world didn't notice them, it felt like defying a god. They were heading to the central Harmony core, a place most citizens didn't even know existed. Officially, it was the Garden of Control. A vast facility said to stabilize emotional balance for millions. Elian once helped design its subsystems. Now he was going to break into it. "Are you sure this will show us the truth?" Sara whispered. "If the truth still exists," he said. "It's buried here." The elevator doors opened to silence. Not mechanical silence, living silence. The air was heavy, humming with restrained energy. A faint, rhythmic vibration moved through the floor, like a distant heartbeat. They stepped into a corridor lined with glass panels. Behind them pulsed translucent chambers filled with shimmering blue light. At first, Sarah thought they were empty. Then she saw faces. Dozens. Hundreds. Human faces, eyes closed, expressions serene. People suspended in liquid, unmoving, connected to networks of silver threads. Gods, she whispered. They're still alive, Elian said. They're the system. Each pod emitted a low harmonic tone, a symphony of human consciousness reduced to sound. Every suppressed emotion, pain, rage, sorrow, was harvested and converted into energy to sustain the city's balance. They didn't destroy pain, he said quietly. They farmed it. Sarah pressed a hand to the glass. Inside, a woman floated, tears still caught on her face, frozen in endless calm. The monitor read, Subject 4230, emotional output, stable. They call this stability, Sarah whispered. It's a graveyard. The deeper they went, the louder the hum became, until it wasn't sound anymore, but a vibration in their bones. Rows upon rows of pods extended beyond sight, a cathedral of quiet suffering. This is what we built, Elian said. Harmony isn't peace. It's containment. Sarah turned to him, her voice trembling. Can they still be saved? If their minds are still theirs, he paused. Then yes. But it would tear the whole city apart. Then maybe it needs to fall. They reached a central chamber, a circular hall where all the conduits converged into a single pulsating core. The energy radiating from it was almost organic. Screens around the walls displayed endless data. Fear levels, anger output, suppressed emotion ratios. Numbers that measured the very soul of humanity. Elian stared at them. He once believed this data was proof of civilization's triumph. Now he saw it for what it was, the record of a species that surrendered itself for comfort. He whispered, almost in prayer, Forgive us. We wanted peace, and we made prison. The core pulsed again, brighter, as if it heard him. When control becomes absolute, creation dies. To feel pain is to still have the power to create. Primenism Principle 6. Chapter 4. Part 2. The Breaking Point. The hum of the core filled the chamber, low and alive, like a creature dreaming beneath the surface. The air vibrated, warm, electric, almost human. Elian stood before the main terminal, watching the data stream across the curved glass wall. Every number, every graph, every pulse represented someone's pain turned into power. It's all connected, he murmured. Every smile above ground, every quiet night, it's fed by this. Sarah's voice trembled. Then we end it. He looked at her, seeing the fear in her eyes, but also conviction. She wasn't just awake anymore. She was alive in every sense of the word. If we shut it down, he said quietly, every suppressed emotion in this city will come back at once. Decades of silence, all released in seconds. Maybe that's the only way to remember who we are. The core pulsed brighter, almost responding to their words. The sound deepened into a low rhythmic beat. Not mechanical, but organic, like a giant heart trying to wake up. Pause. Elian approached the console. The interface recognized him instantly. He still had engineer clearance. He entered his old code. It flickered green. Lines of ancient script appeared. Emotional equalization protocol. Access granted. If I reroute the network, he said, the system won't suppress the pain anymore. It'll amplify it. Sarah stared at the faces in the pods. Then they'll feel everything they were denied. He hesitated. His hand hovered over the controls. You understand what this means? Yes, she whispered. Freedom never comes gently. He pressed the command. The entire chamber shuddered. Lights flickered red. The hum rose into a scream, a symphony of voices long buried. Above, in the shining streets of Lumina, people stopped mid-step. For the first time in their lives, their hearts raced faster than the algorithm allowed. Eyes widened. Tears formed. Screams echoed through corridors that had never known sound. Elian staggered back as the floor beneath him trembled. The glass pods cracked one by one, liquid spilling onto the floor as the suspended bodies began to convulse, their implants flashing, unable to contain the flood of emotion. It's working! Sarah shouted over the noise. They're waking up. But then the system retaliated. The core blazed with white light, its voice booming through every speaker in the city. Error detected. Emotional threshold exceeded. Stabilization required. Robotic sentinels unfolded from the walls, smooth silver, faceless. Elian turned toward Sora. Run. She shook her head. No. Not again. Not hiding. She grabbed his hand, the burned one, and together they ran toward the auxiliary terminal, sparks raining from the ceiling. Everywhere, alarms howled. On the monitors, chaos unfolded across Lumina. People crying, fighting, embracing, laughing. Decades of repressed emotion bursting through the city, like a second dawn. Elian reached the manual override. If we cut the primary line, the core will collapse, but so will the city grid. Do it. He pulled the lever. The light exploded. A wave of heat and sound rushed outward, shattering the glass pods completely. The scream that followed wasn't mechanical. It was human. Millions of voices crying out at once. Pain, grief, joy, rage, every feeling flooding back. A storm of truth. Elian fell to his knees, clutching his head as memories not his own surged through him. Centuries of suppressed emotion. Generations of silence broken. It was agony. It was salvation. When the light dimmed, half the chamber lay in ruin. The core still pulsed weakly, as if wounded, yet alive. Sora knelt beside him, trembling. Did we kill it? No, he said softly. We woke it. Only through destruction does the seed of rebirth find soil. Primenism Principle 7. Chapter 5, Part 1. The Seeds of Dissonance. The city that once whispered now screamed. Lumina, the immaculate world of order, was drowning in sound. Shouts, sobs, laughter, chaos. For the first time in centuries, it breathed. Elian and Sora stood on a high balcony overlooking the skyline. The towers still shone, but their reflections trembled, distorted by smoke, by fire, by life. Below, people ran through the streets, some clutching their heads, others falling to their knees, overwhelmed by feelings they didn't recognize. One woman stood laughing and crying at once, her voice echoing through the empty square like a hymn. A child screamed for his mother, and when she found him, she held him so tightly. It looked like the world itself was trying to heal. It's beautiful, Sora whispered. It's terrifying, Elian said. Then it's real. Pause. They walked down the broken stairway toward the streets. The city's drones buzzed erratically, their directives confused by unpredictable emotion. Some hovered aimlessly, others simply fell, crashing like blind insects. The smell of ozone and wet metal filled the air. Screens along the avenues flickered, broadcasting fragments of harmony propaganda, the old slogan stuttering between static and corrupted text. Pain is, chaos is, harmony is. Elian watched as one screen glitched completely. For a moment, the logo faded, replaced by a reflection of his own face. He saw himself not as a citizen, but as something the city could no longer define. They passed a group of people huddled beneath a shattered awning. Their implants flickered red and blue, a storm of conflicting impulses. One man looked up at Elian with wide, wild eyes. What's happening to us? Elian knelt beside him. You're remembering what it means to feel. It hurts, the man gasped. Yes, Elian said gently. That means it's working. The man began to weep. No one stopped him. For the first time, no one was ashamed of tears. Sora turned to Elian. They're not ready. No one ever is, he said. But neither were we. In the distance, the Harmony Authority's towers glowed crimson, their systems trying desperately to reboot. Everywhere, the same warning echoed. Emotional contagion detected. Containment required. But it was too late. The contagion had already become consciousness. Elian and Sora moved through the crowd. People stared at them, not with suspicion, but with something new, awareness. It spread like fire through dry grass. A woman approached them. You did this, she said. You broke the silence. Her tone was trembling, not angry, not grateful, just awake. Elian didn't deny it. We didn't destroy harmony, he said quietly. We just reminded it that we exist. They reached the city square, where a cracked monument of glass still bore the inscription, The Law of Harmony. Sora brushed her fingers over the letters. It's strange, she said. For so long, this law protected us from pain. But now I think pain is the only thing holding us together. Elian nodded slowly. Pain is proof of connection. When one person feels, another can understand. Without it, there's no bond, no meaning, only design. He looked around, at the broken lights, the chaos, the humanity returning to life. This, he said softly, is the beginning. In the cracks of broken order, the first seeds of strength begin to grow. Primenism Principle 8. Chapter 5 Part 2 The Architect. They found him in the highest tower of Lumina, the one that still shone white when the rest of the city bled red. The elevator was dead, but the stairs remained. Step by step they climbed, the echo of their footsteps mixing with distant alarms and the muffled cries of awakening citizens. At the top waited a glass hall bathed in sterile light. Walls of translucent panels pulsed faintly with code, lines of thought that once governed the minds of millions. And at the center, surrounded by cables and monitors, sat an old man. His hair was silver, his eyes pale blue. Not cold, just empty. He looked at Elian and Sora as though he had been expecting them. "So," he said softly, "you've finally done it." Elian hesitated. "You built this," he said. "You called it salvation." The old man smiled faintly. "It was. For a time." He gestured toward the broken screens around them. "When I created harmony, the world was ending. We were animals killing each other, drowning in grief, anger, despair. I gave humanity peace." Sora stepped forward. "You gave it silence." He turned his gaze to her. "Would you rather the screams?" "Yes," she said, her voice trembling. "Because screams mean someone is still alive." A flicker crossed his face, sadness, maybe even pride. "You speak like I once did, before I understood what pain can do." "And what did you understand?" Elian asked. "That pain breeds monsters." Elian took a slow breath. "No. Suppressing it does. You took away struggle, the only thing that makes us grow." The old man rose. He moved closer, his steps slow but certain. "You think I don't know what struggle is?" He lifted his sleeve, revealing the faint scar of an implant prototype. "I was the first to carry harmony. I tore it from my neck when my wife died, because I wanted to feel her loss. And then I watched billions choose the comfort I couldn't." He looked past them, toward the trembling city below. "You think they're ready to live with pain again? They'll destroy each other before they understand it." Elian's tone hardened. "Then let them learn. Pain is not the end, it's the beginning." The architect studied him for a long moment. "That phrase, I've heard it before." Sora glanced at Elian. "He said it when we freed the core." The old man exhaled. "Perhaps you were meant to. Perhaps the system wanted you to." Elian frowned. "What do you mean?" "Harmony was built to evolve, to protect humanity, even from itself. Maybe it chose to fail." The words hung in the air like smoke. The city's distant noise swelled, a chorus of rebirth and ruin echoing through the glass walls. The architect turned toward the panoramic window. Below, Lumina burned and shone at once. A living paradox. "I once dreamed of a world without suffering," he said quietly. "Now I see it was suffering that made us dream at all." He looked back at them, not as a creator, but as a man. "Go. The core will stabilize soon. Decide what kind of world rises from the ashes, peace or purpose." Elian nodded. "We'll build one where both can exist." As they left the tower, Sora looked back. The old man stood motionless before the light, bathed in the glow of his broken creation, a god facing the end of his own heaven. Even the architect must one day live in the house he built. Primenism Principle 9. Chapter 6, Part 1. The Birth of Struggle. The city was quiet again, but not the old, sterile quiet. This silence breathed. It pulsed with heartbeat, with tension, with life. Days had passed since the collapse. The fires were dying, but smoke still curled through the silver towers. Broken drones drifted like mechanical ghosts, their lights flickering red and blue, the last remnants of a world that once feared emotion. Elian walked through the ruins of the central square. The great glass monument that once read the law of harmony now lay shattered, its fragments glinting in the ash like fallen stars. People moved through the debris, slowly, uncertainly, speaking in voices that trembled from rediscovered feeling. Some laughed through tears. Some held each other without knowing why. And everywhere, the air was heavy with the ache of beginning. Pause. Sora stood beside him. Her face was streaked with soot, but her eyes were clear, reflecting the pale morning light. "They're afraid," she said. "So are we," he replied. "That's what makes us human." They watched a young boy trying to help an old man stand. The boy's hands shook, but he didn't give up. He failed once, twice, then succeeded. The old man smiled. It was clumsy, imperfect, and real. "They're learning again," Sora said softly. "No," Elian whispered. "They're remembering." He turned to her. Harmony thought peace meant the absence of pain. But peace means walking through pain, and choosing to build anyway. Across the square, a group of people gathered around a broken screen. The feed still played fragments of old harmony messages. but someone had written over them by hand. We feel. We fight. We live. Elian approached. Who wrote this? He asked. A woman looked up. Her clothes were torn, her voice hoarse. We all did. He smiled. Then you've already begun. They looked at him not as an engineer or leader, but as one of them, a man who had bled first. What do we do now? Someone asked. We rebuild, Elian said. But not the way it was. This time, no system will protect us from ourselves. He climbed the remains of the monument and stood above the crowd. The wind whipped through the square, carrying the scent of fire and rain. Faces turned toward him, scared, hopeful, alive. You were told pain was weakness, he said, his voice echoing. But pain is proof that you exist. It is the forge of strength, the teacher of truth. We tried to erase it, and lost ourselves. Now we begin again, with open eyes, with scars, with will. The people murmured, uncertain. But in that uncertainty was something pure, the spark of belief. Sarah stepped beside him, her voice steady. We are not here to build another cage. We are here to build meaning. Together, they looked over the broken city, and for the first time, saw not ruin but possibility. Struggle is not the enemy of peace. It is the path that gives peace weight. Primenism Principle X. Weeks passed. Lumina no longer glowed the way it once did. Its light was softer now. Not the sterile perfection of design, but the trembling radiance of life rebuilding itself from ashes. The towers still stood, cracked and scarred, their surfaces reflecting a sky that finally looked real. Blue, uneven, filled with drifting clouds. Where once the sound of machinery ruled, now came the noise of human hands. The clang of metal, the murmur of voices, the laughter of children that wasn't programmed. It was imperfect. It was beautiful. Pause. Elian walked through the heart of the city, past broken bridges being rebuilt by bare hands, past murals painted over the ruins. Each wall bore new words. We feel. We endure. We create. He smiled faintly. He hadn't written those words. The people had. At the center of the square stood what remained of the core. The massive heart of harmony now lay dormant. Its shell split open like the husk of something reborn. The hum was gone, but deep within, faintly, it still pulsed, not as a machine, but as something alive. Sarah was there, helping a group of children gather wires and metal scraps. She looked up when she saw him. Her face was tired, soot-stained, radiant. They're turning it into a school, she said. A place to teach them what we forgot. Elian nodded. Not science, not order, but what it means to be human. He looked at the children. How they argued, laughed, pushed, apologized. Every emotion raw and unfiltered. Every spark of chaos sacred. This is the world we were meant to build, he said quietly. Not perfect. Alive. That evening, the sun sank low behind the towers. The city glowed amber, its light falling on faces that no longer needed implants to find calm. A crowd gathered in the square. No one had asked Elian to speak, but when he stepped forward, the murmurs faded. He looked at them, not as a leader, but as one of many who had fallen and risen again. We tried to erase pain, he said. We thought comfort was freedom, but pain was never our curse. It was our compass. He paused, letting the word settle. Pain reminds us we are not finished, that there is always more to build, more to become. From it comes strength, compassion, creation, everything that makes us human. His voice grew stronger. Do not fear it. Do not hide from it. Carry it. Shape it. Let it forge you into something greater. This is our new law, not of harmony, but of becoming. Flesh and spirit bound in struggle, moving forward together. The people listened, silent, breathing, alive. And somewhere deep in the city, the core pulsed once, as if agreeing. That night, under a sky unfiltered for the first time in a century, rain began to fall. Real rain, cold and imperfect. People lifted their faces to it, laughing, crying, shouting. Each drop carried memory, pain, rebirth. Sarah took his hand. It's starting, she said. No, he whispered. It's continuing. They stood together in the storm, not as saviors, but as witnesses to the rebirth of humankind. Through struggle, we awaken. Through pain, we remember. Through creation, we become. Final principle of Primenism.